darkness descends, turning day to night. She takes to the skies with a blinding light. She's a sight to behold, sexy and powerful, brazen and bold. She's turning up for the fight, rooting out evil and shining so bright.
At a cursed crossroads where souls collide, see the Prince of Darkness, see the Prince of Lies, while the world lies sleeping and the moon's aglow. They may meet with the devil, you know. When your heart is quaking and your soul can't rest, open up the pages of the devil you know best. People face their demons as each tale unfolds, but the devil's in the details, and their fate's been sold. Hear their fate's been sold, and they're lost to hell. That's the deal you have to make with the devil you know well.
Hi.
Right. Hi. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Damn Show on the Critical Blast podcast. I'm your host, Damascus Mintzmeyer. Our regular host, RJ Carter, is off decoding the hieroglyphics on a stargate the military has uncovered and is currently on an Egyptian planet on the far side of the universe. Don't worry, though, he'll be back tomorrow. And in the meantime, I'll be interviewing author Kay Hanifen, whose debut novel, The Last Ballad, came out today, actually. And for the next hour, yes, I got my ARC copy right there. For the next hour, we'll be talking about horror fiction, gothic lit, and all things pop cultural. So it's nice to have you as a guest, Kay. How are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty great. It's been a very, very busy day. I had some family visiting too, so it's been a lot of
Excellent.
Posting on social media, been busy with family stuff, and throwing in I'm also working on an audiobook adaptation of a book that I was the editor for last Christmas, and this Christmas we're working on an audio adaptation of it. So I had a meeting with them today, and so it's been crazy, a bit busy, but it's been good.
That's really cool. First off, let me say congratulations on having The Last Ballad published. You were here a few weeks ago for the Gods and Services group show we had, right there. We both had a story in this book.
Yeah.
And I always like to start my interviews with this question, which is, who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Wow, you're really starting with the light stuff, huh?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I guess Kay Hanifen is my pen name that I go by. I am I write horror primarily, but I also do science fiction, fantasy. I love playing around with genres and stuff. And what was the third question again?
Who are you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Why do I do it? I don't know what else to do. I decided when I was young, like 10ish, that I wanted to be an author. I had been telling stories even younger. Like I would have I would dictate stories to my mom before I could read and write, and then illustrate the little picture books that we'd make. So I've been telling stories for longer, but I decided probably around fifth grade that I wanted to be an author, and started taking in high school. Started taking creative writing courses. I actually went to my high school for its creative writing program, Center for Fine and Performing Arts, and then got my degree in creative writing, and have been working on getting myself published ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of authors, including me, always have this similar answer to yours, which is we're just kind of compelled to do it. Like,
Yeah,
what else?
I am
What else
tormented
do we
by
do?
the visions. I'm
Mhm.
tormented by the visions, and I must put them on page.
Right. I also have I started writing when I was like 5. Like as soon as I was in kindergarten, started learning to read and write, and I did the same thing as you. Wrote that. I still have one from when I was 6. I think it's the oldest one that survived, actually. So a long time. Been doing it a long time.
I feel like I might have found one from preschool, but I couldn't make out most of it aside from something about potato chips. So like
My
I have
earliest one, my earliest one was called no kidding. The one that survived was called Attack of the Bunny Ears. It was like these bunny ears. They were rabbit ears with legs that would fall out of the sky and like attack people.
something.
Where I got it from, I have no idea.
Yeah, mine was a self-insert fan fiction involving Daphne from Scooby-Doo, my
Oh,
younger
cool.
sister, and this local ghost story about a friendly ghost named Charlotte. Like we were my younger sister, Daphne from Scooby-Doo, and this ghost named Charlotte, and all of us like were solving mysteries together.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that. So, is it the publisher that publishes? Is it pronounced Marvale? I know it's not
Miravalye.
pronounced how. Okay, Meravalle. Okay, because I remember when I got the box with the book, they are so cool because they had all the swag in the book. They got a book. I got bookmarks. I got
I can
buttons.
get
I got
plushie.
a cool pen. And
I'm
on
wearing the
the
shirt they gave me.
oh, I love it. I love it. That's what's on my button. That's the logo. Love it. And I remember they had how to pronounce it on the side of the box, and I was like, I hope I don't screw that up.
Yeah, I was mispronouncing it too for a while. I pronounced it like Miraval and then switched over to Miravalye.
Okay, so Miravalle books.
Yeah, when I
Okay,
saw
so
the correct pronunciation.
all right, so tell
Oh,
us about The Last Ballad. Tell us what
all
it's
right.
about, who's the main character, and what was the inspiration behind the novel.
So the last Ballard is about Rhea Ballard, who is sort of the black sheep of this super wealthy family in Cherub Cove. She has been exile in a self-imposed exile for the past 6 years, but returns home to her family's sinister Gothic mansion when she receives word that the grandparents who raised her and were really awful to her have died. And now, while the house is under probate, she's designated as the caretaker of the place. So she has to get her family's affairs in order, and deal with all of the legal stuff plus the implications of her family name. Uh, and also ghosts. The house is full of ghosts. Rhea is very haunted by her past and haunted in the present as well. And with the help of the gardener who's a skeptic, groundskeeper who's a skeptic named Andy, and the family cook turned caregiver for her grandparents, Morgan. She needs to uncover the history behind 100-year-old murder and figure out the figure out how to break the curse to the Ballard house before she becomes a ghost herself.
Love that. Yeah, this was actually thus far this year. This is actually my favorite book that I've reviewed so
Wow.
far. I loved every bit of it. Your writing style just it really just kind of gets you and grabs you in, and I loved all the characters. I really identified with Rail a lot because it really hit close to home. I was raised by my grandmother, but she was much nicer than the
Oh
grandparents.
yeah, yeah. I put in my
Yeah,
dedication like
yeah,
twice to my family. Thank you for not being as awful as they are.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I'm, I'm pretty sure.
the scene that actually hit me the most in the entire book is the one towards the end where Rhea meets her ex-girlfriend Eliza for lunch. That one like gutted me, like, whoosh, because
Yeah.
um like all the illusions Rhea has, like when she ran away from home, she had this idea in her head that one day she would, she had like Eliza in her head, and that one day she would come back, and that they would, she didn't really think maybe they'd pick it up again, maybe not, but she hadn't quite thought, because she was trying to struggle to survive for that 6 years, that Eliza kind of moved on with her own life. But then we as an audience and Rhea see at the same time what a selfish person Eliza really is. Like all the illusions are just stripped away, and we're just like, okay. But that one, man, that one really got me. I really like that.
Yeah, yeah. As for the inspiration, I think that was another question that I kind of skipped over. The
Yeah.
inspiration actually, I actually started with the monster first this time.
Oh, really?
The Rusalka. I've always been fascinated by them as mythological creatures. A Rusalka is a Slavic water spirit that in like more modern versions, but also some older versions. Like one of the popular stories is that it's a woman who has been murdered either by her partner or by her family, and now haunts the waterways, drowning any man who gets too close. And yeah, so she, and the only way to break the curse is usually to kill the is to bring the person who killed her to her, to get her revenge. But if it's too late for that, then it becomes a problem. Then she just kind of sticks around. And so that kind of was the inspiration for the last ballad, along with Haunting of Hill House, which is one of my favorite
Oh,
books
yeah.
and one of my favorite miniseries. And there's also touches of Turn of the Screw in there. I really love that one. I actually wrote it before. It's a lot of people noted similarities to The Haunting of Bly Manor, but I actually wrote the first draft before Bly Manor came out,
Hmm.
like 3 months before, and I'm like, oh, okay. When I saw it, not as a bad thing, but I'm like, oh, that's actually really similar.
Yeah, I
Um,
love the gothic aspect of this book. I love the mansion's almost like a character in itself.
yeah,
Like it just, I really like
I
that.
love, yeah, I love settings that are also characters, because I think that's kind of important to have a very specific place. And this was my senior thesis
Hmm.
book for my creative writing program. And one of what my professor suggested I do, because in the first couple drafts the locations of everything were kind of vague and could be confusing, and there's a place for that too. He talked about how Shirley Jackson had, even though Hill House itself is kind of vague and confusing as to where everything is, Shirley Jackson had done research into the way these buildings are laid out and stuff. And so I did the same with this book. And this copy has the floor plan that I
Cool, cool.
used, along with like a sketch. Like, it's much
Oh,
neater. They
cool.
got an actual artist to do it, but I can actually show you my original floor plan too. I have the notebook with me.
Oh, cool.
Um, I drew sketches of the various floors and
Oh, I like that.
locations in there: the attic, the second floor, the first floor, and the this was my like sketch of the front and back. And it's all very loose sketches, but yeah. Um,
That's cool. You're like me. You go all out when you. I do that too. I'm always drawing sketches. I'll draw the characters sometimes. I've even with stories. There was one story I wrote in a labyrinth, and I had to. All these different characters were in these different tunnels, and I had to like draw out everything to make sure everyone was in their right place and all that. So
yeah,
you,
it
you
does
go
help to
all out.
visualize when I do that. It helps me to visualize things a little better, like the placement of things. I actually, it's with Till the Log Burns Out, I almost broke out like a doll set, and just to place where I think the characters would be relative to each other. I didn't do it that time, but I was tempted to, just so that I'd have like an idea mentally on where everything was.
Absolutely. That was you. Yeah, you. My next question was going to be about the Rusalka, but I was curious, how much research did you do for this book, like about the folklore aspects of it?
I read up a lot about Rusalka. There's honestly not that much literature about
Hmm.
them. Like, so a lot of it was kind of Wikipedia.
Ah,
But I did find other sources and stuff too, and research for the characters and their psychology, along with the buildings. The building was based off of the design that was used for the design of the house that was used for the exterior of the house in Dark Shadows, that whose name I'm
ooh.
blanking on. But yeah, it
Oh,
was
oh,
based off
oh,
the
Collinswood.
yeah,
Collinswood, I think is the name of the house.
yeah. They had the blueprints of it online, like the floor plan, and I'm like, oh, perfect.
Cool. I do that
That's
kind
for
of
the
stuff too. I'm
Rusalka,
always
yeah.
looking.
I did read what where I could, and I think I remember reading about it at for the first time in a bestiary, like a little bestiary book that I had of
Hmm.
mythological creatures and pop cultural creatures, and something about them just kind of stuck in my head. And there was also a movie, I want to say it was called Siren, that also involved the Rusalka, and like I just seek out stories with it because I think it's an interesting figure and kind of an
Yeah, I thought it
underrated
was
one that
too.
people don't use very often.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before. That's why I was all like, this is really cool. Because
Yeah,
I'm pretty into folklore myself, and I was like, this one is one that I've not heard of yet. So that
yeah.
was pretty interesting.
I feel like they're very underutilized for like the pathos that their stories have, of them being victims of violence who then spread that violence onto others. Like that is a lot of pathos for a monster, and I feel like that just kind of, I feel like that more stories should have them.
Mhm, absolutely. So, how much of Rhea was based on yourself, and are any parts of the novel based on your own personal experiences?
Um, not a lot of it is based on my personal experience. I have very nice parents. I have a
I
very
was like
very nice.
worried. I was like, as I was reading through it, because I didn't know, and I was like, how much is this is based on? And I was like getting worried. I was like, is this like an autobiographical thing, or is this like a made
Yeah,
up
no,
thing?
no, no. I'm okay. I swear I'm okay. I I know. Blink twice if I'm in trouble.
But that's how,
Um,
that's how convincing, that's how good you were at it, and how convincing it was. Because I was like, is this real or like?
no, Rhea has my some of what she has, some of the things that we have in common. I'd say that like I consider her to be very separate from me. I honestly, I'm not Filipina, but I probably have more in common with Morgan than Rhea. Coming from a closely knit family, and I also really enjoy cooking and everything. But the like little it's mostly, well, one, her anxiety is like me being prone to anxiety cranked up to 11. So like it so I am prone to anxiety, but not as bad as her. um which I think describes like a lot of the personality quirks that like transfer in through, is that it's some elements of my personality, but not as bad as hers. uh the like religious trauma, I think that we both have anger at religious hypocrites. I don't have the same religious trauma that she does, but when you grow up queer in a religious household, you are inevitably going to have some religious trauma.
Right.
Um, and like I'm good now with everything. Most of my most homophobic relatives I don't really have to deal with, and my parents are very supportive.
Excellent.
Incredibly supportive. They're very, very, very proud of me, and like this, uh, and we're making a point of celebrating tonight too. I still live with them.
Good.
because housing is expensive. Uh,
Right.
and I enjoy living with them too. They're wonderful. And where was I? Oh yeah, her quirks. So a lot of her there are some quirks like her views on The Bachelor are kind of my views.
No.
So like it's little things that, that may liven up her character that aren't necessarily consequential to her, I'd say. Because she is a character that has experienced abuse that I have never experienced, thankfully. And
Mhm.
so she has so her experiences are very different from mine, and so I see her more as a separate entity with some of my personality quirks rather than me pouring myself into her. There are some characters where I do feel like I've poured a lot of myself into them.
Mhm.
With Rhea, I think it's more just her personality, like a lot of her personality quirks, more than her like her interest in folklore too. That's another thing, obviously. um, rather than rather like hers is more like just a few of my quirks to give her some quirks, as opposed to being as opposed to her being like an extension of myself. It's definitely not a Stephen King alcoholic author writing an alcoholic author situation.
Yeah. There's also a mystery angle to the story that I really enjoyed, like the part where Tom and Minerva's journals are being written in invisible ink, and that have to be deciphered and everything. I really like that. It was there was even like a Ray even makes like a Nancy Drew joke at one point.
Yeah. Well,
She's like
Nancy Drew
Nancy
was one of my
Drew.
favorite books as a kid.
I was
Nancy Drew was actually the book series that really got me into reading, and one of the ones that made me want to be a writer, because I used to
that's
actually
cool.
struggle a lot with reading and writing, like kindergarten and first grade. I was behind, but I had an amazing teacher, Mrs. Sampson, who saw that my verbal skills were like pretty strong. It was just for whatever reason the reading and writing weren't strong. My penmanship never caught up, but she
Mine
worked
either.
with me closely on reading and writing. And at around the same time, my mom discovered Nancy Drew books. What I think was the problem was that I was really bored with the kinds of stuff that we had to read,
Oh yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
those sight read books,
Hmm.
which are valuable and important. But I found them so painfully boring that I didn't want to struggle through them. But Nancy Drew, I consider like something that is very like formative to me, because once I started, like it's everything started to click into place with my love of reading and my love of writing, and around the time I discovered Nancy Drew.
Yeah, you make a good point there because I've heard the statement made before that you can get any kid hooked on reading if you can get that one book to them or that one series or something that they can just that like lights them up,
Yeah,
and you'll find that most people who are really into books have found that, like you at Nancy Drew. When I was a kid, the two things that really hooked me, I had this like this they were called step up classic chillers of like Frankenstein and Dracula, like the kiddie versions of Frankenstein and Dracula.
I had great
And the
illustrated
other,
classics.
yes, yes, they did fantastic illustrations, and that's kind of what hooked me.
No, no,
Was
that
the
was what they
art.
were called. They were called great illustrated classics.
Yes, yes, that's right.
Um, so I
And
read
the
those too.
and the other ones were the choose your own adventure books because I really loved the like you were like a participant in the story, which I thought was really cool. So those were the ones that really hooked me. But I've heard them said before that if you can get the kid to a book that interests them, and like you, I was bored with a lot of the stuff that we had to read in school. That stuff
Yeah,
wasn't the stuff that really interested me, even all the way through high school. I think there was maybe two books that we ever read in all of my years of schooling that I actually enjoyed, and that was Hatchet and The Great Gatsby, and that's about it. Everything else was just like a snoozer. I was reading a lot, but not reading
yeah,
what they wanted us to read.
yeah. I actually liked a lot of I did like a lot of the high school reading stuff, but when I work as an English tutor and I tutor
Oh,
privately with
cool.
a family. Um, And when I'm working with them, we do novel studies. And so what I like to do is because I'm working one on one with them, it's a lot easier. I can get their input on what they would find interesting and what they don't. And the kids are also very into horror. So I've read Frankenstein with them, Dracula. I just started. They also love horror, Shakespeare, brain work. I just mixed up two thoughts. I just started with one of them, The Haunting of Hill House, too.
Cool.
But they also, because I think a part of it too is having passionate teachers, because they also love Shakespeare. Like I've had them request Shakespeare after we've read Romeo. After we read like Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar, I had some of them request that we do Shakespeare plays, which that's not really common with most kids.
True.
But I think that a part of it is, when you have passionate teachers and teachers who care, then the students care as well. And
Yeah, I think
I
agreed.
love Shakespeare, so I can like pause and explain jokes to them, or explain context, or why this part is significant and stuff. And that tends to rub off on them, I think. And I think
What's
that's
your
part of
favorite Shakespeare play?
ooh, so I could be cliche and say I do like Romeo and Juliet a lot. But like here's the thing. When I say I like Romeo and Juliet, I don't mean the pop culture understanding of Romeo and Juliet. I mean the actual play,
Right.
which is a lot more complicated than the than the way the teenage star-crossed lovers, they're so in love and then they kill themselves and that's it. And the play is a lot more complex than that. And
Definitely.
it's more and I think Juliet is a lot more interesting than people give her credit for as a character. Um because out of the two, she's more practical than he is in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
which
he's
is
kind
something
of
you don't
lovey-dovey.
yeah,
He's
he's
very
very
snitty.
lovey-dovey. He like well, the thing about him too is that Romeo is a little bit of a fuckboy.
A little boy, a
he
little bit, a
starts
little
the
bit.
play pining over Rosaline, oh fair Rosaline, and then as soon as he sees Juliet, he drops his pining over Rosaline like a hot
Yeah, yeah,
potato.
yeah.
Um, and so, but like also he's a teenager, and that's what's
hmm
to be expected of teenagers, and they would be a good match if it wasn't for their family's hatred of each other. And
Yeah.
so like that adds a lot of complexity to it that's interesting to me. I'm also very fond of Hamlet, another cliche first pick. Um, oh, I'm blanking. The Winter's Tale is really fun too, though it's a bit weird. It's one of Shakespeare's problematic plays because the first two or three acts are a tragedy, and then the other half is a comedy. And I love
Which is
Lady Pauline in it. She's one of my favorite Shakespeare characters because she's really badass. She, talks back to the king and calls him out on his nonsense when he accuses his wife of cheating on him and having an illegitimate child with the king next door and stuff out of nowhere. And she's like, "What is wrong with you?" And like she doesn't let him forget it for 16 years.
Yeah, and
Which
like
is amazing,
you were
while
you were
also
saying
hiding his wife too. Well, like she had the wife fake her death and then hid her away for 16 years, and like every day was like, "Hey, remember when you killed your perfectly faithful and wonderful wife?"
yeah, you were talking about how my three favorites are probably cliche also, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet. I love The Tempest also. That's probably my
Well,
third
Tempest
favorite.
is
But
so good too. It's also really interesting because it's a tragedy, starts out a tragedy, ends a comedy.
yeah, which is the opposite of Romeo and Juliet. One thing I always
Yeah,
loved about Romeo and Juliet is how it starts off it's almost like a farce. Like it starts off like a comedy. Halfway through, when you get the Mercutio Tybalt Romeo fight and everyone starts dying, then it turns into like a very serious like story. And
yeah.
can
That
you
like
imagine?
Switch.
Can you imagine like a movie like being released nowadays, trying to sell that to a Hollywood studio? Say, no, it's a comedy, but then halfway through it turns into this horrible, violent tragedy. It's like, no, that's not going to sell. But no, it works perfect. It absolutely
Yeah,
works.
it's so well. And I think the genre shift, I mean, like if you look at Sinners, the shift does work well. It
Oh,
starts out
I watched that Friday. I watched that Friday for the first time.
so good.
That was an excellent film.
Yeah, that was like an effective genre swap where it starts out as a
Like a
starts out
period
as sort
drama.
of a
I guess
period
you could say
drama
that.
kind of thing, and then vampires show up.
Yeah. It's almost
And
like From
things go
Dusk Till Dawn in a way. Like it's got
yeah,
the same kind of story shift. Yeah,
yeah.
Sinners. My favorite scene in that movie was the one where, like, when Sammy starts playing the blues for the first time at the juke
That's
joint,
everyone's
and
favorite
then
scene.
oh man, that was so cool. Like,
Just
I didn't even,
stunning.
I wasn't expecting it, and all of a sudden, the rappers show up, the DJs, the twerkers, and then you get like the ancient African shamans and the
Yeah,
dervishes, and and it works, and it was like,
yeah.
this is the
Absolutely
coolest
stunning.
thing. Yeah, and I was
Yeah,
like, this
like
is
I
like the
was
coolest
grinning
thing.
the whole time and just kind of in
Yeah,
awe of the whole thing. It's just amazing. Yeah. The entire movie is brilliant.
but I thought that was fantastic. And oh man, the I like the portrayal of the vampires in it. I like how they have like a hive mind. Once they all share each other's memories and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
That was
cool
really,
because
really
it was a
cool.
hive mind, but they could also act somewhat independently of one another as well. And yeah, it was just all of it was so cool.
Yes, it was.
Um,
And Michael B. Jordan was like
oh my
fantastic in
gosh, he
the
was
dual role,
amazing.
man. That
Someone
was the best.
said, yeah, someone said, has anyone checked on the girl who broke her braces during Michael B. Jordan's role in Black Panther? How did she do with Sinners?
Yeah, I love that part at the beginning where when Smoke and Stack they're just sitting there and they're sitting there sharing a cigarette, like waiting.
Yeah,
They're sitting up there, and it's
but
like so
like,
seamlessly done. I
yeah,
love that. And he's
like
like smoking, and yeah, that was
such
cool.
yeah, subtle movie magic. Like literally at the end of the first time I watched it, I've seen it twice in theaters, one time with my parents, one time with my younger sister. And my dad, who is not really a big on horror, absolutely loved it. And but like at the end, my mom was like, "So which one was Michael B. Jordan?" And I was like, "Which two? Wait, there were he was the twins?" Because
Yeah.
that was just it was so seamlessly done, and he was so good at embodying two people who are very similar but still distinct enough that you are able to like tell which one is apart and even forget that they're not two people
Hmm.
but just
Absolutely.
one actor. Someone said Michael A. Jordan's cinematic debut was really impressive.
Yeah. I like how you put that. Right, so let's hop in the DeLorean and go back in time. What kind of kid were you growing up? And you partially answered this part of the question, which is what led you to being a writer.
Well, I think nerdy is a good way to describe me. I was, nerdy, bookish, teacher's pet kind of person. It's actually kind of funny that I've always been interested in like spooky things, but I also was very anxious about it. So I didn't actually actively start writing horror until high school. Um, and before that, it was science fiction and fantasy mostly.
But
Uh,
you were born on Friday the 13th, though. That's
I
what your
was,
biography says. So you were
yeah,
destined. You were
I
destined
was
for that.
destined for it. I was. I was like, I was interested in spooky things, but I didn't. But I was also afraid of being afraid, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes
Like,
sense.
the idea, like, I was afraid of getting too scared to like go to sleep at night or something. And so I actually, as a teenager, had built myself up to modern horror by watching old stuff. Like my cutoff date was like 1969 or 1970 or something for a while, where I'd only watch horror films that came out 1969 or earlier.
Yeah, awesome.
Um, and then I built myself up from there. Once I was like, oh, these aren't too bad. Um, and so yeah, I was nerdy. I've always been really into comic books and superheroes. There's Thor up there.
Awesome. I got The Crow right back there.
Yeah.
All my graphic novels back there.
Yeah. I've wall graphic novels, and that isn't even like all of them.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Kindred
So
spirits, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I've always been very nerdy. I was really into Ninja Turtles and still am.
Oh. Hang on.
Which one is that? Is that Raph? You're a little blurry because
Still
that
have
looks like
my
Raph.
Michelangelo.
Oh, Mikey. This is my
Yep.
Leo shrine, and this isn't even half the
Cool.
Leonardo stuff in my room.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
This is
Leo's
actually one of the original. This is still one of the original figures I got when I was a kid, and he's the only
That's
one that
awesome.
has. He still has his accessories.
Yeah, I think I
He's one of my
have
good luck charms.
original. So I don't know how much you. I know you clearly like Ninja Turtles. I don't know how much you know about like the lore, but I have an original Usagi
Oh.
to go with all my other Usagi's stuff too.
I got one too,
Yes,
right there. Yep.
Usagi is my
Awesome.
favorite. I love them. I've got a chibi one too right here, and then
Oh,
like another
cool.
plushie and various mugs.
This was a really hard figure to find. The
I
Usagi figure. I remember
literally
that.
so there's this secondhand toy store nearby
Hmm.
near where I live, and I literally just stumbled upon it. Like I saw it at the store, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have to have this."
Yeah.
It was just in a display case, and I'm like, "This is made for me." Oh, and cat tax. That's best.
Oh,
That's my
cool.
cat Bastet.
Good name.
I have,
Good name.
yeah, I have 3 black cats: Bastet, Athena, and Edgar Allan Poe.
I like that. Around
Yeah,
paw, I like
actually,
that. That's
I didn't
clever.
come up with that one. I'm ashamed to say it was. He had the name of the shelter, and I'm like, well, that's too perfect. I'm not changing it.
Yeah. So you liked old horror up till 1969, 1968, 1969. I remember the first time I ever watched Night of the Living Dead. That was like the first time I ever screamed at the TV because no one had told me what the ending was, and I was just like,
Oh my god,
I
that
was
just
like, oh my god.
that ending is so brutal.
I
And
know.
yeah, I think the first one pre 1969 that really that really scared me was Peeping Tom.
Oh yeah, that's like the first
I
slasher
remember
movie.
watching it at the end and literally feeling my heart race with him like threatening the one woman at the very end of it.
Yeah,
That
'cause
one
that came out the
scared
same
me.
year. That came out the same year Psycho did, and those were like the first two slasher movies, I think, right? Peeping
It
Tom.
I think it predates Psycho by about a year or so actually. It's a little
Ah,
earlier. And yeah, it was one of the first two like true slashers um out there. I would argue that one of the first ones is actually Agatha Christie's and then there were none. So
yeah.
the style is
I
more
read that when I
mirrors.
was. I remember reading that when I was like 11 because I remember I'd seen like
I read it too.
I remember I'd seen it. I'd seen like a PBS version of it once, and I was all like, and then I found the book and I was like, oh, I got to read this. I remember I did some homework before this
Which ending
show.
did you watch? Which ending was it for
Uh,
the PBS version? Was it the good ending or the bad ending?
I think it was the bad ending. It's the one I think I
Okay.
saw. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not.
because they're both. There are two versions. There's a good ending
I
and a
did
bad
not know
ending.
that. I did
Yeah,
not
I
know that.
actually
Huh.
I was just I've that's the one I was just teaching with one of my students previously.
Hmm.
It's got a good it has when you look at the play, the book ending
Hmm.
is the bad ending, as you know.
Right. That's
And
the
in
one I do.
1939, when she adapted it with the same ending. But
Ah,
then World War II was hitting. So she decided to give it and audiences weren't responding to the depressing ending
right.
as well. So she changed it so that Lombard and Vera both were innocent and survived.
Ah, huh, I
And
did not know that.
honestly, yeah, it's not as good as the
Huh.
not as good as the bad ending. Um,
Well, speaking of
but yeah.
slashers, I did some homework before the show, and I came across your author blog, and it had I was really engrossed reading some of it, and I particularly enjoyed your blog post about the Terrifier movies.
Oh yeah.
I really
I
enjoyed
really need
that.
to update that blog because it's about a year out of date at this point.
Yeah, but I really
At
liked that.
least.
I agreed with your sentiments about part one and how much part two improved over it, because I've
Yeah.
seen and I was curious if you'd seen part three, like
I
subsequent
have
to writing that.
I have not yet. It's on my list. I mostly just need to find a streaming service that has it at this point. Because I don't really feel like paying money for it and don't really feel like surfing the high seas at the moment, if you catch my
Right,
drift.
right, right,
Um, so I have not. I'm kind of waiting for it to show up on Prime or Tubi like Terrifier 2 did.
right.
But I will definitely check it out there. I like Art the Clown. He's fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do agree with
Oh,
you though. The first part didn't really like. I've seen all three of them. Actually, I've seen the All Hallows Eve movies, which are,
yeah.
eh. But Terrifier one, it really kind of lacked. It lacked as you were saying in the blog, it lacked like a central protagonist, and they didn't really get in too deep with any of them. So you didn't really have. Basically, it ended up being like torture porn if you really
Yeah.
wanted to get into it. Basically, what I had was a charismatic bad guy, and it was enough to get a sequel. But the sequel was so much better. I've seen Terrifier 2 4 times, just
Yeah.
because I liked Sienna Shaw. I love the music. I love the synthwave music they had for it. The whole like it's set at
The
Halloween. It's got the
adding
right
the
vibe.
lore.
Yeah, it's just the
Yeah.
colors, everything. It just was perfect. And
It's interesting. What were you saying?
Terrifier. I was gonna say Terrifier 3 is kind of an extension of part two. It definitely has a different vibe. The soundtrack's different, but it's very much Christmas horror. And if you've
Yeah.
seen stuff like Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Black Christmas, you'll definitely enjoy it. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a chainsaw shower scene that is really, really, really intense. Like,
Yeah. I think I read about that one. I like just out of curiosity and anxiety, I looked it up. I looked it up on Does the Dog Die just to see like some of the worst bits. Because Art the Clown, I don't have many recurring nightmares, or many nightmares at all. But usually when Art the Clown shows up in one of my dreams, it becomes a nightmare. Um, like he's one of the very few characters that like actively gives me nightmares. It used to be Freddy Krueger, but then
Mhm.
I had a couple dreams where I literally beat the crap out of him. And after beating him up a couple times in my dreams, I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm fine.
Well,
I'm not
that's
scared.
kind of like what happened in the later Nightmare movies. They kind of got a little bit silly and a little bit campy, and you know,
Yeah, Freddy Krueger is a lot less terrifying when in your dream you see him and you just start ramming his head into a wall and beating the crap out of him.
what is it about Art that's so scary? You think is it because he doesn't say anything? Is it because he's got the mime routine going on?
I think it's partly that, partly his immortality and his his difficulty in staying down. I think partly it was a lot of the nightmares happened before I saw the first two films, so I think it's just also the hype around this character too. I think it's also the brutality of the kills too,
Definitely.
because they really don't hold back all that much.
No, no, they don't.
But like makes it more makes him more unsettling, along with the fact that he doesn't talk in the playful mime aspect of him too. um it adds a bit of humor, but he does have that sinister vibe to him too, that just I don't know, something about him. For what I think, like I said, I think a part of it is that like I dream about I had recurring bad dreams about him before I saw the movie because of all the hype around it. And once I saw the movies, I kind of stopped having dreams until the third one came out, and then they started sometimes again. Like it was only one or two after, but yeah. So like I'm like so it's like feel a part of me feels like I have to watch them too, because then it's the best way to conquer my fears.
Right.
Which I also used to have recurring it was Freddy Krueger and The Exorcist was the other one, because my mom saw it as a kid and gave me generational trauma. It traumatized her, and she, to a point where she like can't deal with anything related to it. And she actually likes certain scary movies, just nothing to do with possession. And I used to have recurring nightmares about like someone being possessed, and I had to play the exorcist in it. And the last time I remember having that dream was the night I watched The Exorcist for the first time around 2022ish. And you know, it's still an effective movie, like watching it now. But yeah, so sometimes I think a part of it too with my recurring, like when I have recurring pop culture nightmares, is that I related to like a horror figure or something. I need to watch it myself just to be like, okay, so that's what that's about. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Because your
So you were talking
imagination is
about
not worse than reality.
right. So you were talking about Shirley Jackson and the Nancy Drew book. So what authors had an impact on you, like growing up specifically?
There was the Ranger's Apprentice series was a big one. The Wizard series that shall not be named was also one, but I've kind of now looking at that series, it's like seeing a childhood friend who's back.
She kind of blew that one, didn't she? I mean, with her behavior
Yeah,
and her stance on certain things, she kind of. I
yeah,
mean,
like
an entire generation, like she had an entire generation that were like looked up to her, and then she just kind of blew it, you
yeah.
know?
With that, it's like I described seeing the Wizard series that shall not be named when it's around like seeing an ex-friend, a former friend, like a childhood friend who just went super right wing, like QAnon off the deep end. And like you remember the good times you had with them, but you're like, I can't do anything with you ever again. And that's sort of how I feel about the book series that shall not be named. Chronicles of Narnia, on a brighter note, was another one that was pretty formative. I said Ranger's Apprentice, that was a big one that I loved. Fablehaven was a lot of fun as a kid. I read Song of Ice and Fire at way too young an age. Uh, I like literally, I start, I started it. I bought a collection of it because I didn't know anything about it. Just that they compared George R. Martin to Tolkien in a like in a book review thing for Costco multi-pack of all the books, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, that should be interesting. So I convinced my mom to get it. I was maybe fifth grade. I started it, couldn't finish it the first time. Waited a year, and then started again and read all the way up to about halfway, maybe a quarter of the way through A Dance with Dragons, or
Mhm.
like I read the first four in the series, and then parts of halfway through A Dance with Dragons later, like when I was in high school. But yeah, I was way too young for that. I don't, yeah. And it's kind of on me because I could have been like, I think I'll put these away till later. But no, I just read through them all. Mainly because it was pop literally everywhere, Game of Thrones. So you kind of needed to know where the memes were coming from.
Mhm.
But yeah, not exactly great middle school reading. There was an incident. I had one substitute teacher. I had the book at the end of my desk while I was working on some math problems in and we had a substitute teacher at the time. And like the class was kind of unruly and like, but he didn't really care. He was just kind of like whatever. And he literally walked up to my desk, picked up the book, and started reading it. And I'm like, oh my God, am I gonna get in trouble for this? Like, I know this book isn't appropriate. I was in seventh grade. This book is not appropriate for me. What are you doing? And then he just put it down and he's like, I forgot how it ended. I'm like, way to give me a heart attack.
That's awesome,
Um,
though.
yeah.
So
Uh,
do you consider yourself do you consider yourself like a planner or a pantser when it comes to your own writing? Do you like plan it out intricately, or just kind of just get an idea and like run with it?
I call myself a planter because I do both. Um,
That would be me
I
too.
Yeah, I usually start with a list of characters and like a basic premise and things that like story beats that I kind of want to get to or something like or strong images in my head. And then and like character lists to refer back to, location lists, what I want to do with it and stuff. And I usually will write the story and then I'll start writing. And because I think that when you're writing, there has to be room for improvisation and following your instincts.
Definitely.
There was this one story that my creative writing teacher in high school liked to tell about a guy who was writing and planning meticulously the scene where these two people finally get together. Like they was all building to this, and then his instincts kept telling him, "Make the phone ring, make the phone ring," and he was like, "No, they're supposed to be together at this point. This is it. This is supposed to be it." But he added the scene, and when he went and submitted it to the editor was like, "No, that scene was the most natural part of the whole story." So like I think that there has to be room for both. That when you start a story, you often have a certain vision. I often have a certain vision in my head about where it's going to go, how I might get there. But then you kind of after a certain point have to trust the character. You kind of start as the characters start speaking to you and the characters start growing. They often grow in different directions than you expect they
Yeah,
will.
they do.
And
That's absolutely true.
and that makes it well, that's one of the joys of writing is the surprise, but it also is like sometimes I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing, I don't know what I'm doing next. um yeah, funnily enough, there was some characters there's a certain character in the last ballad, the book version that we have
Hmm.
here. He didn't want to die.
Ah.
uh
Oh.
yeah, I won't say who and spoil it, but they didn't want to die. The first draft I wrote, it was like I'd planned to kill him off from the start, and then in the first draft I wrote, I wound up killing off a different character.
Ah.
um, but when I went to rewrite it, I'm like, okay, I really do have to kill him off, unfortunately. um, for like the story's emotional stakes and stuff. So, yeah, unfortunately, he did have to go, but he didn't want to, and
That's interesting.
uh, yeah, yeah. So, uh, well, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at with the planner versus pantser. I'm a planter. I do both because I think you need to have
Yeah.
both, and I'll add like I'll have a planning document. And
Hmm.
then I will just, if I have an idea for something it's going to be several chapters ahead, I just write it down on the planning document. And if I get to it, I get to it. And if I don't, then it's okay, kind of thing.
Excellent. All right. This is my next part of the show is my favorite part of the show. I call it the lightning round of nerd questions. Okay.
Okay.
It's kind of like free association. I ask a question, you just answer with the first thing that pops into your mind. All right. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. All-time favorite movie.
Oh, God. Now I'm drawing a blank on every movie I've ever seen. I guess John Carpenter's The Thing might be up there as
Ooh,
all-time
well, that's a good
favorites.
choice. That's a
Um,
good choice.
Yeah, I could do favorite miniseries, which would be Haunting of Hill House, easily. Uh, yeah, I'd say John Carpenter's The Thing might be one of my favorites. That was the first one I thought of. So we'll go with that one. Oh, Troll 2.
Rob
There we
Bot.
go.
What was it?
Troll
What?
2. Um,
Oh, okay.
it's not a good movie, uh, by any stretch
That's
of
a
the imagination, but it's very
that's one of
fun.
the that's so
And
bad it's good though. That's like one of the
yeah,
so bad it's good.
and so I think by sheer rewatch volume, Troll 2 is definitely up there because it's just fun. I like torturing my friends with it. If you can survive watching Troll 2 with me, then then our friendship is strong.
All right. All-time favorite horror movie,
God,
specifically.
specifically horror movie. There's so many that I like. I think the Fear Street trilogy might be one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, cool.
I'm really bad at playing favorites. The Fear Street trilogy. I love that from Netflix. It's very fun. It's a good introduction to like teen slashers, I think. Um, like I plan on showing it to my nephew in like the next couple years or so because he's starting to get into horror. And like I already watched Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and was chatting with him, and I think he'd appreciate Fear Street.
Excellent. Okay. What's a guilty pleasure? What's a guilty pleasure movie that you love? You know, the one that's not that good, but that you love anyway.
I think I just listed it, Troll 2.
Also, of course.
But yeah, I feel like there's I'm not a believer in guilty pleasure because I'm like if it's pleasurable, it's pleasurable. You might as and why would you feel guilt about something you enjoy?
True.
And so and it's more fun to gleefully inflict it on others when you're having fun too.
There's a lot of bad movies that I love, like The Room and
Yes,
Birdemic. Those are two other ones
yes,
that
those
I
are
really
classic.
enjoyed. Those are like so bad, but they're like The Room,
Oh,
especially. Like,
oh yeah, The Room is amazing. Have you seen Doom Asylum?
I've heard of that one. I've not heard.
Oh
I've
my
not
god, it
seen.
is so terrible. You'll love it. Like it's one of those it's not a Tubi original, but it's on Tubi. I last I checked it was on Tubi and it's
Wait
got
a minute.
like
I
a
think I'm.
wisecracking slasher,
Is that the
amazingly
one with
terrible
the?
acting.
Is that the one with the punk chicks? She keeps laughing all the time. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I have seen that one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
She's like on the roof, and like every sentence, she's like ha 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 ha. And then there's
Yeah,
like the yeah, and then there's
the
like the
acting is
like
just
the yeah. There's like the Russian communist chick, and she's like goes down and she gets killed by the slasher. She's like everything's like some sort of political statement with her. I've seen
yeah,
that one.
yeah. That one
I'd
is
forgotten
like
about that.
so that one to me is so bizarre. It just swings right around and being amazing and funny. Um Sometimes I
Okay.
genuinely wonder. I want to see what was in these directors' heads when they were making it, because like with the really, with like some of the mediocre ones, you're like, okay, I see what you were trying to do, and like the gap in between. But with the ones that are really bizarre, I'm like, so what were you trying to do with that?
Okay. Past or present, what's your favorite TV show?
Um, so uh, For horror, that would be Haunting of Hill House or anything Mike Flanagan miniseries. Also the 2003, if we're talking like my childhood favorite that I still adore to this day, it would be the 2003 Ninja Turtle series. Like I said, massive Ninja Turtles nerd. That
Okay.
was the series that I grew up on, and it's just it's like it's comparable, I think, to Batman the Animated Series in terms of like the quality of the stories and the storylines and everything. It's like it's a lot like some of the there are some cheesy moments and some questionable voice acting and musical stings, but the writing overall for it, it's very, very serialized and interconnected, and the world that they create in the series is just so like where it gets to a point where it's like Four Mutant Turtles isn't even the weirdest thing about this world. But it's very classic superhero too. The writing is, like I said, is great. They do a lot of fantastic character stuff. Like in season 4, Leonardo goes through an arc, a very, very well written arc about having post traumatic stress disorder from the previous season, like before any other cartoon was, like before Steven Universe ever was a glimmer in Rebecca Sugar's eye. I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it was. They were into that, but like before before it became a common topic of discussion, they were talking about like PTSD and how the police ignore the homeless when the homeless are being kidnapped and because it's kid friendly, but when homeless people are killed too, um, like how the police wouldn't care about that, don't care about that, so they have to be the ones to step up and care about it. And it was very, very well done series. And I was, once my niece and nephews were of age, I'm like, okay, we're watching this now. We're watching this. And also it has my favorite version of Usagi in it too.
Awesome. All right. 5 favorite musical performers of all time.
Hmm. Alfie Boe, I think, is the first one. He was Jean Valjean in the 25th anniversary special, Les Mis special. Idina Menzel is another. I'm a bit of a musical nerd, if you can't tell.
I love music.
I'm big in, I like musicals. I'm not, my taste is very basic for musicals. I like any actual theater nerds would be like, oh, her favorite musical is Wicked and Les Mis. How basic, but I like them. Alfie Boe, Idina Menzel, Lady Gaga is another big one. Heather Dale is a like Celtic singer. Like she's Canadian, but she does a lot of Celtic style music, and she does like Arthurian ballads and ballads about like various folklore figures and stuff, and I really enjoy her work. I really like Tarja Turunen and Nightwish.
That's a good band.
Yeah, I do like
band.
fantasy metal too, so I have a little bit of broad tastes, but
All right. Favorite food.
favorite food, chocolate. I think I love chocolate. And very fond of pizza and pasta. You know,
That may have answered my next question, which is, what's your favorite junk food?
Probably chocolate. Definitely. Though I have gotten pickier about it now. Um, things freshly baked goods, especially when I'm the one who baked it, because I really like baking too. Yeah, last year I was partly for research for a novel that may or may not materialize in the next 5 years or so. I decided to do a baking project where I would try making a new recipe every week. There were some weeks where I didn't do it and stuff, but um, yeah. So, but it gave me some range to experiment with things, and I had a lot of fun with experimenting. I joke that since all my jobs are creativity aligned, baking is my scientific outlet.
All right. What's the name of your first pet?
First pet. We've always had cats in the house. My first two pets, we actually had two at the same time. Two cats named Holly and Christy. They
Cool.
were from before I was born. Was the mother cat. Holly was the kitten. They were kind of feral, but Christy was really sweet. And my mom, at the law firm where she worked, my mom is also a massive animal lover. And all around just the best person. And she would go and feed her and feed her and her kittens. And they managed to catch all but two, Christy and the kitten Holly, who was a black cat. So I grew up around black cats too. Born on Friday the 13th, had a pet black cat as a child. So my dad said, well, if you hold out a box and they jump into it, you can keep them. Not really expecting much, but then they managed to catch them at the church, and they knew my mom had been feeding them, and they were like, hey, do you want this cat and her kitten? And my dad was like, well, that's the closest we'll get to them, you holding out a box and then jumping into it. So he agreed.
That's
take on.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. First celebrity crush.
Mm. Oh, that's tough. I'm actually on the ace spectrum, so that makes it even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I would be Demi myself. So
yeah.
I'm like right
Yeah.
there with you.
Yeah. Uh, weird one, especially since I'm generally not attracted to men, but Nicolas Cage, especially in the Sorcerer's Apprentice. I think I just was fascinated by him because he was so weird in a fun way in that movie. So I'd say Nick Cage in the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I tend to get attracted to like characters more than like the people that play them.
Same,
Because you
same.
know what I mean?
I mean,
Because like
yeah, like if we were talking characters or cartoon characters, I'd take a
yeah,
wild guess.
exactly. Because I remember I love like when people usually ask me the question, they always say, "Well, I always like Sarah Michelle Gellar," but I really loved Buffy Summers. That was what I
Yeah,
liked. Like that was
yeah,
I just like
exactly.
that character.
Yeah,
But so
I
that's
feel the
always like
same way.
that's always
Yeah,
kind of
right.
like my stock thing. But very few people like understand that. So I usually just take the safe answer, but usually I like
Yeah, I
characters
know.
more than like the
I
actors who play them or people or whatever.
Yeah, because like I mean, actors' personalities, they're actors, they're playing pretend, but
Hmm.
but if you have a crush on someone that's not like, especially if you like you and I, if we're both not very big on physical attraction and stuff and more attracted to the personality, then the
Hmm.
personality they put out for their character is the thing that, you're more interested
Exactly.
in.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I get that. Um, which is, why a 5 foot tall talking turtle, I guess, would be technically my first celebrity crush. Well, actually, no, I
Exactly.
take it back. It was probably Aurora from Sleeping Beauty and Nancy Drew. I think I had a crush on Nancy Drew.
That's cool. Okay, you're stranded on a desert island, a deserted island. What three things do you take with you?
um, let's see the I get so for the boring practical answer, I'd say a book on survival, a satellite radio that can send and receive messages, and water purifying tablets.
That's good.
Uh, yeah, I think like I feel like that would be. Oh wait, no, actually, I have the best answer. A plane home.
That's
Uh,
cheating. No, no, that's
that's
pretty smart
cheating, I
though,
know.
actually.
Or a boat. I take a boat with me.
That's
um,
good.
yeah, but I think a book on like if I had to pick something for like practicality's sake, book on survival, like surviving in the wilderness, water purification tablets, and a radio that can send and receive messages. And if not, then maybe uh, flint or something for like a fire starter survival kit. Because the things you need are rope, like something to make rope out of, something to hold food, a water source, a source for shelter, um, and some way of like some form of food, like gathering food. The survival book would help for like especially if it's centered around like identifying plants or something,
That
assuming that
would
it's
work.
one for that region. Because a survival book talking about identifying African plants would not be super South African plants would not be super helpful in like the South Pacific. So
True.
so it would have to be region specific. But yeah,
All right. You meet your 13-year-old self. What advice do you give the younger you?
um, don't stress about the fact that you don't feel attraction to people.
Definitely.
Um,
I get that.
uh, yeah. We're gonna, stick with stick with your writing because, it's gonna take us places. In fact, maybe start submitting a little earlier. Um, you don't have to rush to have the kind of life that they show on like the kind of life or growing up on television.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
do things at your own pace.
I get
and
that for
that's
sure.
okay. Get checked out for OCD. Uh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
I
that
get
might
that.
actually be a big one. Uh, you can't catch Ebola without being near someone who is already sick with it and like presenting symptoms. Um, so like definitely get checked out for OCD. I'd say is a big one too.
Yeah, I definitely agree what you're saying about the like I noticed it with myself, like every time I would try to get that sort of like traditional life, the by that I mean like there's that the myth of the suburban American life where you got the house, the picket fence, the 2.5, it's like that's not for everybody. Not everybody, and I feel a lot of people like as you say, they kind of force themselves or pressure themselves into that because they think that's what they're supposed to have. But like it wasn't for me. I know
Yeah.
that for sure.
Mhm.
Okay, so you
Also,
find that gene. Well, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
No, I
No,
was
no,
going to
you
say the
go,
last
go,
one would be. I just thought of one more. By the way, you're queer. It's fine.
go.
You'll be fine.
You find that genie's lamp. What three things do you wish for?
Hmm. I guess it depends on how political you want me to be.
That
uh, uh,
the Cheeto gets crushed. That would be like
yes,
the
I
first
was going to
wish.
say that Cheetah was never elected in 2016. The Cheetah was never elected in 2016 and vanished from culture um, afterwards in embarrassment. That uh, that people would actually that everyone would wake up and actually do something about climate change. Yeah, so I'm doing like tall orders for this genie. I don't know, $1 billion sounds good if I'm gonna be like if I'm gonna make
That would be
self
good.
like I guess it depends on if you want
Yeah,
me to give my selfish wishes or my selfless wishes. Because I feel like my
either.
selfless wishes would take priority, but because I feel like if I had that much money, I'd probably spend most of my time giving it away. But like um like I guess it depends on if we're talking selfish or selfless wishes for this. Selfless
I
wishes,
see.
save the planet. Cheeto was never elected in 2016 and vanished from culture completely, or never existed in the first place. Um, and Ronald Reagan never became president. most
That'd
of
be
our
good.
most of our most of our terrible policies now can be traced back to him. So,
Yeah, yeah, that is true. All right, so what's
so
next for Kay Hanifen?
um, so I currently am working on an audio adaptation of Till the Yule Log Burns Out, which is an anthology novel hybrid where I got together with a bunch of authors, and it's sort of like Gods and Services,
Hmm.
where
Oh,
it's a
they're
collection
all
of short
connected.
stories, but
Oh,
they're all connected with a
oh, cool,
wraparound, and
cool,
each wraparound is told from the point of view of the character who is telling the story in the next chapter.
cool.
And so
Okay.
we're working on a fully cast one where each voice actor takes the chapter and the short story and leads all the way through, goes all the way through to the end that way. And I'm very excited for it. I got to meet with one of the voice actors today,
Oh, that's cool.
and she was very nice, and it sounded great reading the character. So I'm very excited. Um, I'm also working on sending out short stories, and I have a couple trunk novels that I'm trying to send out without much luck. I know one I need to go back and like edit the second half because it's not as strong as the first half. But I just haven't had the mental energy to do it, plus other things, and I have another novel work in progress right now that I won't I don't like to jinx it by talking about it.
I
Um,
get that.
so we'll say so like, but this one I'm very excited about and have been working on for. I started it like about a month ago, and I'm already 25,000 words in, and it's flowing really well. So knock on wood, it will stay that way, and I can find someone who would be interested. But yeah, I'm kind of working on that and sending out short stories too. I do plan to send to the next Critical Blast open call as well.
Excellent.
And
The more monsters next door is actually open right now. If you've got a story idea for it, they'll be open
yeah,
till July 31st.
yeah, I
And
have one.
we need submissions. We need submissions. We've been hit a dry spell actually. And there was like the big first crush, and now we've hit kind of a dry spell. So now
Yeah.
would be a perfect
Oh,
time to send it
one
out.
more thing. This is
Hmm.
I'm going to start teaching, or I hope to start teaching creative writing courses through a local art center called the Candy Factory.
Hmm. Oh,
If you
cool.
go to my Instagram, there's a link to if you the art factory is tagged to it in it. If you're interested in signing up, I'm doing them in person. If you are in the Northern Virginia area or on Zoom, which would be 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. And
Cool.
for these creative writing courses, I have two courses that I'm doing. The first one is the art of writing, which is sort of a thing across genres. We're doing a lot of writing prompts, and I'm giving some advice, and also like practicing critiques and how to interact and critique with one another. And then writing workshop prep for publication is for people who are maybe more serious about getting published as opposed to people who want to just practice writing. So I treat it more like a college workshop where I go through we each read each other's stories week by week, and then we critique two every week, and we'll be doing uh, and then I'll also, for both of them, but definitely in the second one a little more so, going through like how to format your piece to send it out, writing cover letters, places where you can send your writing out that would help, so that you can get published. And the goal is to also start a literary magazine.
Oh, cool.
And the people who sign up for the prep for publication automatically get published in the literary magazine. Those who do art of writing will
Good.
get priority, and those who do prep for publication will also be able to vote on some of the stories, which ones they want in or out of the magazine.
That's
Um,
awesome.
I'm excited, but not many people have signed up.
Oh,
Yeah, if you know anyone who's interested, either in the Northern Virginia area or
I actually
free,
probably do know someone. I do know an author, Alistair Nelson, who lives in that area. So hit me with that
yeah,
link tomorrow. Drop it in my IG. I'll share
okay,
that with her.
yeah,
She
yeah,
might like that.
and or anyone on the East Coast, since I'm doing it through Zoom too. If you're available 6 to 8 p.m. East Coast time, Thursdays for Art of Writing or Fridays for Prep for Publication, uh, you're welcome to sign up. And it starts now July 10th and 11th is the start date. So you have some time to sign up if you decide to do so.
All right.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you for being a guest tonight, Kay. It was fun talking
Thank
to
you
you,
so
and
much for having me.
we look forward to having you on the show again when your next project comes out. Don't forget, everyone, to head over to Amazon and check out The Last Ballad. Here it is. And if you enjoyed tonight's show, remember, like, share, subscribe to Critical Blast on YouTube. That's it for tonight. The damn show is done.